Hi, Mike Harris back with What in the Law podcast here at one of my favorite restaurants, Sweet and Savory Pie Bar on Centennial. They're amazing. Come check it out. I wanted to spend a little time talking about jury messages or lack of messages depending on the case. And there's been a lot of things in the news, a couple things going on, and there's a lot of people have been talking about, do juries send messages with their verdicts? And generally speaking, that's just a myth. Jurors are given one case at a time, a set of instructions, and they're basically told to vote on what is proven or not proven in one particular case. They don't just give messages on whether they like a law or don't like a law. In fact, in any kind of trial, judges specifically tell them that is not something that they are supposed to do. They're supposed to weigh the case, not weigh punishment or whether they agree a law is good or bad. And frankly, that's usually what they do. There is very, very rarely been cases where jurors say, a case has been proven, but we're going to do something different because we don't like it. And this has come up a little bit recently. There's been this Amber Heard and Johnny Depp case. And frankly, I don't want to get into the specifics of that. I haven't watched it. I'd have enough pain in my life without having to watch that. But there was a lot of talk of, did that send a message about domestic violence or anything else? And frankly, it did not send a message. It was one case, one review of evidence, and one verdict. It was not a decision on whether people like or don't like any particular type of conduct. And that's generally what happens. That being said, there is always another side and an exception. And there is something called jury nullification. Jury nullification is basically where jurors say, we don't care about the law. We're going to say something that we feel is right. And that does happen on very rare occasions. An example where something like that might happen is, let's say you're in a state where marijuana is illegal and they prosecute someone for having marijuana. You might get a jury who says, we don't care if it's illegal. We don't care if he's guilty, and they say not guilty anyway. Sometimes that happens in very minor cases. I remember one of my first cases when I was a 24-year-old intern at the prosecutor's office in Fort Lauderdale, and they gave me a case to prosecute involving a guy who stole a $2 pack of batteries. With inflation, it might be $5 today. But it was still very minor. And I thought the case was pretty damn well proven, but the jury probably said, who cares? And maybe they were right. Sometimes things like that happen, but it is not the norm. Now, there is something that may be happening in the future where jury nullification could come into play based on what happened yesterday with the Supreme Court overruling Roe versus Wade. And I'm going to take a little bit of history first. In this country, we used to have some laws that a lot of people thought were extremely immoral, especially at the time of slavery. And this is something that we talk about in law school sometimes, in what is a proper role of jurors. And the example they give is the fugitive slave laws, where it was illegal to help someone freeing slavery. And you could be prosecuted, and judges would tell the jury that follow the law. And if this person helped shelter a slave, they are guilty. And sometimes the jurors would say, we don't care. It's wrong, it's immoral, and they would say not guilty anyway. Now, is this going to happen in the future? Well, a big change happened yesterday, and in large parts of this country, it is now illegal to get an abortion. Whether you're a doctor, a patient, or anyone else involved, you can be arrested by the police, prosecuted, and sentenced to jail. In many parts of this country right now, and that could change in other parts of this country very soon. And there may be cases where in one part of the state, maybe the people don't agree with that law and may say not guilty anyway. That'll be very interesting to see how that develops, and in some ways maybe very scary depending on how you feel about this issue. Now for Colorado, where I am, nothing has changed right away, other than we may be getting a bigger influx of people coming in from other states to have an abortion where it's illegal elsewhere. That being said, that could change also. There is a lot of talk in Congress by one group wanting to make it legal everywhere and keep the old law, that as far as what the law was when Roe versus Wade still was in effect. And there are some other people who are trying to make it illegal everywhere, including in Colorado and other states where it's still legal. The next 2 elections are going to be very important to see where that goes. And how that's going to happen in the courts, remains to be seen. But whatever you feel, show up and vote, let your voice be heard, and things will develop in, frankly, unknown ways. But that's a little bit about juries, nullification, jury messages, when they exist, when they don't exist. And see you next time on What in the Law podcast.